Hello, welcome to this AD Quickbite, and I'm going to run through in detail how to tie this legendary big fish rig. Now, the rig I'm talking about is the Hinge Stiff Rig. This rig has been around for so long and was made popular by the likes of Terry Hearn, Lewis Reed, Jim Shelley, just to name a few. And Darryl Peck, he still uses the Hinge Stiff Rig now for all his pop-up fishing. And rightly so. There's many theories and reasons why it's known as a big fish rig, but for me personally, it's down to the components that I use. They're all super strong, super reliable, and with this super stiff bristle filament chod section, I feel that it flips and turns and catches hold of that fish's bottom lip pretty much every time. And when you're playing big carp, having the confidence that your hook hold is bang on is part and parcel of it. Now, the spinner rig, the Ronnie rig, has sort of taken favour for a lot of people's pop-up fishing, but let's face it, it's a superb rig and I've used it for, well, 2 or 3 years constantly now, but the hook hold can be a little bit wayward, if you know what I mean. It's so effective that it catches hold in the fish's mouth wherever, and sometimes when you're playing a big fish, you can suffer a few hook pulls, and that's exactly what's happened to me recently. I've joined a new syndicate and the first fish I hooked was a big one and I lost it on a Ronnie rig. Now, that's not saying that they're not great, I still use them, but the reason I've moved over to a back to a Hinge Stiff Rig is the fact that I forgot how good they are at landing big fish. So that's why I've done this quick bite. I'm going to show you how I fish it and the components and exactly how to tie the Hinge Stiff Rig. Now, first things first, lead clip arrangements. Now, I like to fish it using a helicopter system. You can fish it using a lead clip, but for me, the helicopter system ticks all the boxes. I use Leadcore where fishery allows, and the idea of it, this bead can be moved up the Leadcore so you can fish it in all situations. If I'm fishing on a hard lake bed, I'll have it quite close to the lead. If I'm fishing in light weed or deep silt, I will pull the bead up to allow for this rig to sit on top. Let's go into the actual boom system of the rig and how to tie that. Now, booms, everyone's got their different theories. I like a stiff boom when I'm fishing on a helicopter system. If I was to use the lead clip system, I wouldn't use something so stiff. And I like to fish it with a 5-inch boom with my helicopter system. Yeah, I think the stiffness will kick the pop-up away on the cast and present pretty much on most things, like I say. Let's talk about how to tie the boom. First things first, the material I use is Korda's boom material in 25 pounds. I trim off about sort of 7 inches and I crimp a small loop on one end. I then slide on an anti-tangle sleeve and then another crimp, and I crimp on a size 11 PTFE ring swivel, leaving a nice loop on the end. That's the boom now done. Let's tie the chod section. Now, you can tie as many of these chod sections up and leave them in your tackle box, and every time you catch a fish you can just re-crimp them on. But let's show you how I tie them. I like to use thick bristle filament and I use it in 30 pounds. I like to use a size 6 Korda choddy hook because they're nice and light and don't affect the buoyancy of the rig once it's tied. I will use a knotless knot and I'll whip it up the shank of the hook 5 times, leaving a tag end. Now, this tag end, I will slide on a micro ring rig swivel and then pass the tag end back through the eye of the hook, trim if required, and then I'll blob with a lighter. Now, I will then thread on another crimp onto the chod section, and this is where you can decide the length of your chod. Now, if you're fishing on a firmer ground, firmer lake bed, probably a little bit shorter. If you're fishing in weed, you can extend it up to about 2 inches. But for me, I like to have about 15 mil of gap between the hook of the eye and the crimp. Now, I will crimp it on with a nice loop for extra movement. That is pretty much that done. The only addition is a little bit of putty, which I will mold around the actual crimp on the boom. Now, I put the putty on here and not on the actual chod section because I feel like the chod has a lot more movement and works a lot better without the putty on. And that is pretty much the rig tied. As I say, when you tie these chod sections, you can tie as many as you like, but without that that crimp on, so when you catch a fish, you can just cut off the one you've caught the fish on and then crimp on your new chod section. And that is pretty much it. The only other addition after that is a super buoyant hook bait, a nice pop-up so that rig sits nice and proud off the lake bed. There you go, that's how I tie the legendary big fish rig, the Hinge Stiff Rig. And if you want to tie one, check out the links in the description below. You can find all the components at Angling Direct. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch up on the next quick bite.